Tommy DeSimone was born into a world where violence wasn't shocking. It was expected. He grew up in New York surrounded by men who measured respect by how much fear followed your name. By the time he was 20, he already carried himself like someone who'd seen too much. He had a reputation that stretched through the boroughs: quick-tempered, unpredictable, and dangerous. Guys said he'd smile 1 second and break a man's jaw the next. That kind of personality didn't survive long, but while it lasted, it got him noticed. He worked with a crew that operated out of the airport rackets, hijackings, truck jobs, whatever made fast money, and stayed quiet enough to not draw heat. The whole system around JFK in the 1970s was built on inside men: cargo handlers, drivers, warehouse guards, all part of a network that moved everything from fur coats to cash. It was a setup that worked for years, and Tommy was right in the middle of it. He wasn't the brains behind the operation. He was the guy you called when something needed to get done fast. He didn't hesitate. He didn't ask questions. That's what made him valuable. But it's also what made him a liability. Because when someone like Tommy starts thinking with emotion instead of caution, bad things happen. And in 1970, one bad thing changed everything. That summer, at a small bar in Queens called The Suite, an old-school mobster named Billy Batts had just gotten out of prison. He was a made man in the Gambino family, someone untouchable, no matter how much anyone hated him. He saw Tommy at the bar, smiled, and said something that stuck like a knife. He told him to go shine his shoes. It was meant as a joke, a callback to the days when Tommy was just a kid hanging around the older guys. But Tommy didn't laugh. He left that night without a word. 2 weeks later, Billy Batts was gone, lured back to the suite, beaten and stuffed in a car. It was brutal, fast, and messy. Henry Hill, who was there, said the killing was personal. Tommy took it too far. They buried the body upstate, but paranoia got the better of them. A few months later, they dug it up and moved it. That decision alone told everyone how serious the situation was. You don't move a body unless you're scared of who might find it. In their world, you didn't lay a hand on a made man. That rule was sacred, and Tommy broke it. The only reason he survived for the next few years was timing. The right people were locked up, distracted, or too busy making money to deal with it. But that kind of debt doesn't go away. Sooner or later, somebody has to pay for it. By 1978, Tommy was still around, working jobs and running with the same crew. Then came the Lufthansa heist. December 11, 1978, one of the biggest robberies in American history. More than $5 million vanished out of JFK Airport without a trace. The kind of score that makes people rich and makes bosses nervous. Too much money, too fast, and too many people bragging. The FBI started breathing down everyone's neck. Within weeks, guys began disappearing. Bodies were found in trunks, cars abandoned on side streets, names crossed off lists. Tommy was already a problem before that job, and after it, he became one too big to ignore. The word going around was that the Gambino family still wanted him gone for killing Billy Batts. The heist just made it easier. It gave everyone a reason to clean house. Then one day in January 1979, Tommy's wife Angela said he came home looking happy. He told her he was finally going to be made. It was what every guy in that life wanted: recognition, protection, status. He borrowed $60 from her, told her he'd be back soon, and walked out the door. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. She reported him missing on January 14, 1979. That story about being made wasn't true. It was bait. The ceremony was never real. It was a setup from the start. They told him what he wanted to hear, got him in the car, and took him somewhere quiet. It's the oldest trick in the book. In that world, you don't run. You don't fight. You go because the people calling you are supposed to be family. What happened next was never written down, but the ending was never in doubt. Tommy DeSimone didn't come home because he wasn't supposed to. Most believe he was killed the same day he left. The hit was approved by John Gotti himself as payback for the Batts murder. Some said his body was taken to a house in Brooklyn and buried in the basement before the floor was sealed. Others say he was driven out toward the marshlands, somewhere quiet where no one would ever dig. Either way, the result was the same. No body, no funeral, no grave. Just a name that vanished. Subway rumbling. Rain against a window. The FBI searched for years. They had informants, wiretaps, old crew members willing to talk, but nobody could ever give a location. Guys like Henry Hill told their version later, said Tommy's death was revenge, simple and clean. But the truth is, nothing about that life was clean. It was all about balance, one act of violence paying for another until everyone was gone. For Angela DeSimone, there was never closure, no body to bury, no proof of what happened, just stories passed around and rumors that grew colder with time. She said later that Tommy was a good husband when he was home, that he loved their kids, that he got caught up in something he couldn't control. But once you're in, you don't get to choose how it ends. New York has a way of keeping secrets. It's not hard to hide a body in a city that big. There are basements that haven't been opened in 50 years, empty lots that got paved over, warehouses where concrete was poured twice. Even the marshes out near the water still hold things the city doesn't want found. The men who did it knew that. They'd done it before. They knew exactly how to make someone disappear. Tommy's story got twisted over time. When Goodfellas came out, people learned his name through a character that wasn't really him. Joe Pesci played Tommy DeVito, based on DeSimone, but not exact. It turned a real man into a movie character, a piece of entertainment. People laughed at the violence, repeated the lines, turned the story into pop culture. But behind that character was a real guy who died in silence, and a family who never got a single answer. That's how New York buries its ghosts. Not with dirt, with time. The longer something stays unsolved, the easier it is for people to move on. Cops retire, witnesses die, records disappear, and after a while, the only thing left is the story. Tommy DeSimone's body was never found because it wasn't supposed to be. It wasn't a mystery, it was a message. You kill a made man, you don't get buried, you get erased. The Gambino family made sure of that. It was business, payback, and example all rolled into one. Even now, you can walk through those same neighborhoods, Queens, Brooklyn, all the places he moved through, and nobody will tell you they remember him. They remember the legend, sure, the movie, the story, but not the man. That's the real punishment in that world. When they kill you, they don't just take your life. They take your name. Tommy's gone because he had to be. The men who made the call didn't want proof. They wanted silence. And in New York, silence is something you can build into the concrete.